It's Tuesday. I'm Michelle Gassoub here in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. I've got your top stories. Canadian Indigenous leaders have voted unanimously to call on the federal government to uphold the ban on oil tankers off BC's north coast. Delegates at the Assembly of First Nations meeting also passed a resolution asking Ottawa to withdraw the energy agreement signed last week with Alberta that could clear the way for a new oil pipeline to the BC coast. The Memorandum of Understanding signed by Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was the first topic up for discussion today at the gathering in Ottawa. Prime Minister Carney is scheduled to address the First Nations leaders later today. The numbers are in, and the number of British Columbians spending Black Friday in the United States was down drastically from last year. That's according to the Border Policy Research Institute at Western Washington University. Last year, 30,000 BC-plated vehicles entered the U.S. through the Linden, Sumas, and Blaine border crossings over the American Thanksgiving weekend. This year, that number was down to 20,000. Across the border, those tracking the economic impact say the hits to the bottom line are adding up.
You have the greater economy, you have lack of Canadian shoppers, maybe you have other cross-border tariff-related costs that are impacting your business. They can't wait for their Canadian customers to return when they're ready.
But he says there's little relief in sight, with tariffs still in effect and trade talks between Canada and the U.S. at a standstill. A new report from Statistics Canada is reflecting what many in BC's healthcare system have been highlighting for months. Vacancies in health-related occupations have nearly tripled in the last decade. And experts say they are already seeing an impact on the ground in BC, and that shortage is only expected to get worse. The president of the British Columbia Nurses Union says retention is just as important as recruitment.
We need to make nursing a more attractive profession. To do that, we need to address violence in healthcare as an example. We do need to provide, workloads that are reasonable for nurses.
The province says it is working on bringing in more workers through their U.S. recruitment campaign. Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services say they broke a record for single-day overdose responses in November. That was on the 21st, when crews responded to 54 calls. They say calls for overdose response have gone up significantly lately. A captain with the service says exposure to that much suffering is taking its toll.
I've seen people, using slumped over, passed out on the street. There's no part of this. This is normal. And now we've normalized, members of the public to look at this and be like, oh, this is just normal. Or, firefighters going there and seeing self-harm and all kinds of personal injury, or going to the same person, 2-3 times a day, every single day until they die, is it weighs on people heavily. And everyone responds differently to this, of their compassion and their humanity.
Trudeau says opening up more spots in detox centres and mental health facilities could help curb overdose numbers. That's it for now. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Michelle Gassoub, and BC Today with Michelle Elliott is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. More than 1 million British Columbians are experiencing food insecurity, according to Food Bank's BC's newest hunger report, which finds more users than ever before. When have you had to use a food bank, and what's needed to address food insecurity? After 12:30, Fred Penner has been entertaining and educating children about kindness for decades. And he'll join us, and you can call in. Let us know how you instill kindness in your kids. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. This Friday, CBC British Columbia will host our annual Make the Season Kind campaign. It is a day of programming with live music and special guests designed to raise money for food banks in this province. Well, Food Banks BC has just released its second annual hunger report outlining the increase in need for food banks. And it says a quarter of British Columbians are experiencing food insecurity. But food banks are so stretched, 10% of them are turning people away. We're going to hear from food banks in Surrey and in Fort St. John. And we're also taking your calls. When have you needed to use a food bank? And what's needed to address food insecurity? You can call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or dial 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733 is our other number, 604-669-3733. You can also send us an email, bctoday@cbc.ca, or leave a comment on TikTok. Kim Savage is Executive Director of the Surrey Food Bank and joins me now. Good afternoon.
Hello.
What stands out for you in this report?
So I think a couple of things really stand out for me. One is that we have 1 in 4 people in the province of British Columbia facing some form of food insecurity. So in Surrey, for us, that represents about 180,000 people, and that's a really big number. And I think the other thing that stands out for me is that the numbers keep going up. Since COVID, the numbers just keep creeping up and up and up. And so that is also a really big challenge to navigate.
180,000 people in Surrey, wow, which is the fastest growing community in British Columbia. And many of them are families moving there. What is the impact of such widespread need?
Yeah, so certainly for us, our experience would echo what Food Banks BC has documented in their hunger report. So over the last sort of 3 or so years, our food bank usage is up somewhere between 60 and 65%. Last year at this time, I was saying it was up 50% over the last couple of years, but that number keeps getting higher. So we're just over 22,000 client visits per month right now. We have about 9,000, a little more than 9,000 unique clients that access our services twice a month, and those are just huge numbers, and there's a lot that we're doing to address that, but it is difficult when those numbers are so high.
I'll put out the number, or our phone number once again. You can let us know, when have you needed to use a food bank, and what do you think should be done to address the issue of food insecurity? Our phone number is 604-669-3733. 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca, or if you're joining us on TikTok, you can leave your comment there. My guest is Kim Savage, Executive Director of the Surrey Food Bank. And so, Kim, given, that's quite a significant need, quite a significant increase, are you able to keep up?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a few things that our organization, along with a couple other organizations, have done very purposefully to better address the needs. So one of those things is there's about 4 organizations in the community of Surrey, Sources, Storehouse, and City Reach. And we all collaborate together to make sure that we are able to say yes to those larger food donations. So when a company comes to us and says we have 20 pallets of lasagna that we want to give to you, we jump on that and we say yes to that every single time, and then we distribute it out amongst the 4 partners. So that's one of the things that we're doing. The other thing that we're doing is really trying to start working with clients about addressing some of their root challenges in terms of what's bringing them to the food bank, what's keeping them at the food bank. We all know that food banks are supposed to be an emergency and temporary solution to a temporary problem. But what is happening now is people are needing to use food banks for longer periods of time. And so we're trying to get at some of those root causes so they don't need to be using us for as long as they are.
And what is bringing them to the food bank?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. Obviously, newcomers to Canada are trying to find their way in a very complicated and expensive landscape. So if you're coming from another country and rents are $2,500, $3,000 a month, and you're just making minimum wage or perhaps even less than that, that's a really challenging situation to be in. So that's one model. But one of the growing numbers that we're seeing is people who are actually working. So they might be working part-time, or perhaps they're working full-time. They might be underemployed, but what's also happening is they really are doing their level best, but they're reaching the end of their money in their bank account before they reach the end of the month.
And we know from this report that there is a good number of people, almost a quarter of food bank users actually have employment, have income from employment, but yet are needing to turn to a food bank. Let's take a call right now from Susan in Maple Ridge, discussing the demand at food banks that has grown 9% over last year, and visits have soared 79% since before the pandemic, since 2019. So we're asking you, have you had to turn to a food bank? If you'd like to share your experience and what is needed in order to address the issue of food insecurity. Susan in Maple Ridge, hello. Thanks very much for calling in. Hi, Susan, are you there? Not sure we have our connection with Susan. We'll try to fix that connection. Thank you very much for calling. And if you could call us again, please, 604-669-3733. Kim, this report calls food insecurity a systemic crisis, and you talked about the root causes as well, and food banks are meant to be a temporary solution. So what are the policies that are needed to address food insecurity?
Yeah, we often get that question, and I'm always a little reticent to answer it. I'm not a politician. Sure. I'm not a policy creator. I will say, though, is that unless our communities and our businesses can make sure that people are working and that people are making good incomes, we are going to continue to see this problem, because the wage disparity between those that have wealth and those that are really struggling keeps ever increasing. And that's one of the real challenges we see here at the food bank.
We have an email here from Bob in Revelstoke who writes, although I don't need a food bank, I know a lot of seniors that do need the service. If the government raised the old age security and or CPP to a higher level, maybe we could get some people off of this service. And the report from Food Banks BC makes some recommendations, including having the province strengthen local food systems and infrastructure, ensuring stable and multi-year funding for food banks, and finding ways to improve household incomes. And BC does have a poverty reduction strategy in 2024, saying that the province has increased the BC Family Benefit and working on developing affordable rental housing for families, independent seniors, and individuals through the Community Housing Fund. So that is what the province, those are the steps that the province is taking. Let's take a call now from Don in North Vancouver. Hi, Don, welcome.
Hi, yeah. I've rich most of my life, but I'm not doing too bad now. But I learned to pick wild foods a lot. And there's lots of really good wild foods out there. And seasonally, there are surplus farmers such as recently we had pumpkins, and there were millions, at least tens of thousands of pounds just thrown away, composted again. So when things come up and you can buy pumpkin like really cheap.
Are you talking about individuals, Don, or the food bank?
Well, the food bank as well as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If they buy pumpkins when they're cheap, then they'll keep a couple of months.
Yeah.
When people have money, don't go to the store and buy air or water, which are the main things that are sold in bags of different things, cereals and so on. Buy whole wheat flour, buy brown rice, buy sugar or honey, buy oats, slow cooking or organic preferred. And then all you need to do for the next several months is buy fresh fruit and vegetables and some kind of meat or chicken or fish.
Don, great point there. Yeah. Thank you very much for the call, Don. And Kim, what about that? You know, when it comes to the food bank, are there also resources for learning to shop smart, is what Don's point was?
Yeah, so we certainly do make some of those resources available in terms of shopping smarter, stretching some pantry items further, reimagining how some of those pantry staples are used, so that it's not, what people might typically associate with food bank food. Just to pick up on one of the things he said earlier as well, I think farmers and food producers are becoming very, very aware of food insecurity, and they're actually working really hard with food banks to make sure that that product doesn't go to waste. So our organization, some of my colleague organizations like Richmond Food Bank, Maple Ridge, Greater Vancouver, all of us are getting, large donations from farms when it is harvest season in terms of things that they're not able to sell. So things are probably not being wasted to the extent that maybe the public thinks that they are, but I certainly take the point of the caller of making sure that nothing is going to waste.
Kim, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll continue to follow this, of course, ahead of Make the Season Kind on Friday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kim
Savage is Executive Director of the Surrey Food Bank. We are asking you, when have you needed to use a food bank, and what do you think should be done to address the issue of food insecurity? Our numbers again, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. We go now from Surrey to Fort St. John, and mill closures in northern BC have led to an increase in food bank use. The communities of Fort St. John and Vanderhoof are set to lose 500 jobs at the end of December, when Canfor is slated to close sawmills in both communities. Patricia Budgell is coordinator of the Fort St. John Salvation Army. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me, how big is the need right now for the food bank in Fort St. John?
Right here in Fort St. John, we are serving approximately 12% of the community just through our food bank services. Obviously, there are other services that are needed and provided throughout the community, but just for food alone, we are serving about 12% of our population.
Wow. And what has the increase been year over year?
22% increase since last year we've seen come through. We're taking anywhere from 6 to 10 new families coming in each week to sign up for services.
What are people telling you? What is bringing them to the food bank?
Obviously, the cost of living all across Canada has increased for everyone. Families are struggling just to be able to provide the essentials when it comes to heat, when it comes to light, when it comes to housing, fuel, and just being able to sustain themselves.
Sure. And specifically to the Northeast and the North, what impact has the downturn in forestry had so far?
Fort St. John is a resource-based economy. It's not only forestry that's taken a hit. Unfortunately, we have a big oil and gas industry here as well, agriculture. So all of those collectively have taken a hit, and we really are feeling the strain from clients coming in that have lost their jobs or have taken jobs with less pay, and they're just not able to stretch that dollar far enough to be able to provide the staples for their family. So unfortunately, a lot of these people are working or have recently lost their jobs, and they're really just trying to transition in an economy that's not really allowing us to prosper.
Well, that transition there, we know that there's this plant closure at the Canfor Mill in Fort St. John and in Vanderhoof. That's at the end of December, but are you already seeing any impact?
Last year, we had a mill closure as well just before Christmas, and we did see a lot of people come in. I think the fact that people are just living paycheck to paycheck right now. When you lose your job, you have no fallback. The economy has been terrible for many years, and people don't have any of those funds to fall back on. So when you lose your job now, you need immediate help right away. You have nowhere else to turn. So people are coming in right away. I think we need sustainable and dignified solutions, mostly in reducing price at grocery stores, investing into the economy and jobs, especially for our resource sectors. These are high-paying jobs where families can have sustainability and disposable income. So in turn, it creates more jobs through retail, travel, extracurriculars. All of those activities provide jobs throughout the community. So I think, when we are investing in our resource sectors, it really goes a long way for us up here in the north, especially.
Let's take a call now, and we're asking you if you have needed to turn to a food bank. You can let us know about your experience and what led you there. And you can also let us know what you think about what is the solution to actually addressing the root causes of food insecurity. Our number again, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. My guest is Patricia Budgell at the Fort St. John Salvation Army, looking after and organizing the food bank there. Veronica joins us now from Oliver. Hi, Veronica. Welcome. What are your thoughts on what's needed at the food bank?
Thanks so much for including me. I would say, first off, we're going back to emphasizing that we need a living wage. So that would, and I will say I have had the privilege of never having to use a food bank. So living wage. And then the next thing is our food security infrastructure needs significant investment. So we need collaboration across organizations that are in that business, like the Salvation Army or the little pantries or all of the things that go on in community. And they need support, transportation and storage and preservation. We need local food hubs that really harness all of the different things that are going on and capitalize on things like food waste. So it's great to say there's pumpkins out there, but little food organizations, what are they going to do with all the pumpkins? They don't have anywhere to put them or preserve them or store them or process them. And the last thing I'd say is that we really need to keep front of mind that people need choice. Respectfully to the person who was talking about smart shopping, fair enough. If you have privilege, you are able to be a smart shopper. I don't think that we should be saying, this is what you should buy if you are food insecure. You should have the right to buy what you want and what you need for your family. But my big message is we need to invest in our food infrastructure system so we can provide better support because it's not going to go away.
Veronica, thank you so much for your call from Oliver. And so, Patricia, what do you make of that call for adjusting the food security infrastructure, whether it is food banks or local food hubs, as well as Salvation Army? I know you are affiliated with Food Banks BC and Food Banks Canada.
Well, I know here specifically in Fort St. John, we are able to make the most of the donations that come in, even when they are in bulk. We have volunteers come in that preserve foods, perishable items, and preserve them, so we're able to stock them on our shelves throughout. And then any food that is not edible or able to be given out to clients, we actually give out to farmers, and they'll return by giving us a butchered pig or a butchered cow while we're providing those items to them. I think we've really had to be innovative in how we're able to amplify on those donations when they come in and stretch them as far as they can go. And I think it's important to let the public know that we are doing as much as we can to make every single donation and every single piece of produce that comes in really go as far as it can. We don't like to see anything go to waste.
Let me quickly go here to Jane in Kelowna. And Jane, you volunteer at your local food bank.
I do. Hello. Thanks for having me on. I do. Yes. I strongly feel that this is a municipal decision, that we can't wait on the government of Canada, the provincials, that it has to be handled at a municipal level. I just recently moved back to Kelowna, and you've never seen it, but there's a tent city in Kelowna that stretches almost a kilometer long. And why is that? We can fix that, can't we? We have to fix that, because I lived homeless myself for months underneath a tree, and we need to do better. The temperature's like 2 degrees here right now. We need to do better, and it's a thing. It's possible.
Jane, I'm just going to pause here for our TV audience and a break that we need to go to. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes from now. Jane, I'd love to ask you more about that. I have seen, evidence of the homelessness in Kelowna, and you mentioned that you have been homeless. Have you had to turn to a food bank, and what did that mean to you in that moment?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have turned to a food bank, and I'm gluten free. I'm celiac, and so it's really hard when you have to turn to a food bank, because they don't carry gluten-free bread; they carry white bread, and so it makes it adds to the challenge. It probably, I'm not alone. There's probably a lot of people out there that are celiac or whatever, and the food bank doesn't carry what we need to eat.
What difference, and keeping in mind the limitations there because of your dietary restrictions, what difference, if any, did it make for you being able to turn to a food bank?
Oh, survival. It's the difference on eating or not. No, it's been a staple in my life for a number of years, and it's very humbling.
I really appreciate hearing from you, Jane. Thank you so much. And I'll put some of your points about putting this to municipal and local governments as well to our guest. Okay, thank you very much for your call, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much.
That's Jane joining us from Kelowna. Patricia, really thank her for sharing her experience there and some of the challenges in getting what she does need at the food bank. But what are your thoughts on what role, I guess, what levels of government you would like to see get more involved in supporting food banks? Or pardon me, supporting rather the food insecurity issue, broader than the food banks. I think we might have lost our connection with Patricia Budgell, who's coordinator of the Fort St. John Salvation Army. My thanks to her. Patricia, are you back with us?
I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. My apologies for that. I just wanted to ask you about Jane's point when it came to saying, we need the local governments more involved when it comes to servicing the need for food.
Well, I think what struck me most about Jane's position is when it comes to homelessness. I think when people lose their jobs or they are experiencing the stresses of day-to-day life, unfortunately, it causes some people to fall into hardships and make bad decisions. And I think first and foremost, when we are reducing inflation and affordability for essentials for families, we're easing up that burden and kind of that mental strain that really causes people to fall into these cycles of homelessness and addiction. So I really think that we need to invest more in getting these people from falling into this position where they have to make these hard decisions and kind of feel hopeless. And then in turn, it will take the strain off the communities to have to see this and give us more resources to be able to help people that are already in this situation with mental health programs, rehabilitation, and just really learning how to come out of those situations. I think when food banks are able to provide nutritious food and help families kind of be able to get through those hard times, I think it's a preventative measure from having people fall in and facing these hardships like being homeless.
Patricia, thank you very much. It's really good to hear from you in Fort St. John.
Thank you so much for having me.
Patricia Budgell is coordinator of the Fort St. John Salvation Army. And lots of emails are coming in. We'll put them together for you for our next half hour. It is now 12:31 here on BC Today. And we are going to have a special guest with us in our next half hour to talk about the role of kindness in our lives, and especially as we raise the next generation. Yes, Fred Penner will be here, who has raised generations of children through his music and programs. So he'll join us, and we'd love to hear from you. How can we make kindness a priority? And what do you do in your own family to instill kindness in your kids? We'll have that conversation with Fred Penner coming up after the CBC News Update with Tarnjeet Parmar.
Good afternoon. Prime Minister Mark Carney will speak to hundreds of First Nations chiefs this afternoon who have voted to call on his government to withdraw from an agreement that clears a path for a new oil pipeline from Alberta to BC. The issue was the first topic up for debate at the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Ottawa today. Statistics Canada says that the average rent for a two-bedroom basement fell in Vancouver in the third quarter of the year. It was down 6% compared to last year to $3,190. The agency says the number of sales was below the 20-year historical average, and the number of non-permanent residents in BC also fell in the first part of 2025. And a man who killed two people in Vancouver almost 8 years ago has been found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder. Kane Carter was charged with killing a 23-year-old gang rival after an exchange of gunfire on West Broadway in 2018. One of the bullets hit 15-year-old Alfred Wong, who was in his parents' car at the time. He later died from his injuries. Carter will be formally sentenced at a later date. Those are your news headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. For more information, you can go to the website, cbc.ca/BC.
Tarnjeet, thank you very much. That's Tarnjeet Parmar in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And lots of comments coming in on food insecurity to our email, bctoday@cbc.ca. And here's one from Linda in Campbell River. To address food security in the long term, we need to grow and produce more local food. This means more farms, greenhouses, and processing plants near where people live, so we're not paying high shipping costs. Also, we need to make cooking skills and nutrition part of the school curriculum. Heather writes, I'd like to see a federal government food security and agriculture sustainability program. Climate change, as well as a loss of agricultural land, are also reducing supply. John writes, there are a few people out there who use the food bank but might not actually need it. I have a few times witnessed some older people with their carts walking into and taking fruit from the food bank, and then leaving, going around the corner and getting picked up in expensive cars. People who really need food banks, that's great. But if some are just getting free stuff when they can't afford it, it is taking the help away from the needy. Robin writes from Smithers, I'm a veggie farmer vendor and on the board, the president of the board of the Bulkley Valley Farmers Market. There is a BC nutritional coupon program run through the Ministry of Health and the BC Association of Farmers Markets, which provides families and people in need with weekly coupons to be used at participating farmers markets. This program helps so many in need, particularly in the north, where food insecurity can be felt more. It also helps local farmers and producers. I'd love to see the government further expand this program to help people even more. Robin, thank you. BC Today at cbc.ca. You can send us your thoughts there. It's 12:35 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you this afternoon as we approach our special day of programming this Friday, December the 5th, in aid of food banks in this province. Here's a story of one woman.
My name is Irina, and I'm in Food Bank because my salary is not enough to cover for my rent and other expenses, and I have to care of my son who is at school. So this is a great help for my family. I come here every week, mostly on Wednesdays when my son is at school, and it really helps me with the basic food I need for the entire week, with diary, with snacks for his school, with some fruit and vegetables. I spend most of my salary to cover for my rent and other expenses like paying my bills. The remaining amount is hardly enough to live in British Columbia. I work in a company which is dealing with neurodivergent kids, and I'm a case manager in this company. So we are helping families with the kids to improve their skills, social skills first of all, and be ready to socialize in our society. I think that kindness doesn't cost anything to people who can share it, so that's why anytime I see any possibility to help people around me, I do that. Because, for example, I'm a foreigner here, I'm a newcomer, let's say. I don't think that 3 years is good enough to be called local. If I know people from other, let's say, groups, because I'm fluent in Spanish as well, I would help these families to get the services, help whatever I can do. It fills me in because the more kindness we share with people, the more kindness we get back. If you help someone, it doesn't cost you anything, but it returns back definitely.
Thank you very much to Irina. And this Friday, December the 5th, is the day we set aside to help raise money for people who find themselves needing to use a food bank in BC. You can donate anytime, though. You can go to cbc.ca/kindbc and click on the red Donate Now button. There you'll find the drop-down menu and all 111 food banks in BC. When you make a donation, you will receive a tax receipt within hours. That's cbc.ca/kindbc. And there you can also find out more about the great day of special programming we have planned. I'll be on the air from noon to 3, along with Margaret Gallagher, host of North by Northwest, and we'll have live music, special guests for you, including teen magician Blake Alliong, as well as, my goodness, Chef Bruno Felddyson from the Great Canadian Baking Show. So lots in store for you on Friday as well. Do come join us here downtown at the CBC Vancouver Broadcast Centre. And we're on the air from noon to 3, and lots of activities throughout the day as well. Well, 12:39 now. Speaking of kindness, here's someone who knows a thing or two. And if you grew up in Canada, you likely grew up with Fred Penner. The Juno Award-winning children's musician has entertained and educated children for decades. In 1991, he was made an Order of Canada for using music and song to entertain and educate his young audience. His TV series, Fred Penner's Place, aired from 1985 to 1997 on CBC. And in 2020, he marked the 40th anniversary of The Cat Came Back.
The cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. They thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. He just couldn't stay away.
Well, Fred has always shared his message of kindness and the difference one can make in the life of a child. We're taking your calls now for this conversation with Fred Penner. How do you instill kindness in your own child? What do you do? What do you try to practice? And how do you think we can prioritize kindness in our current very fast-paced world? You can give us a call now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or dial 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or send us an email, bctoday@cbc.ca. You can also leave a comment if you're watching us on TikTok. Fred Penner, what a treat. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, we are doing the handshake.
I'm doing the handshake, exactly.
Word got around the newsroom that you were going to be on the show, and some of my colleagues, I have to say, just started squealing. It was like their inner child just came out. What's it like for you when you're touring? What do you hear from, not just from the children, but yes, from their parents?
Well, certainly now after being on the road for 50 years, that generation who I began with, back in the 80s, are now adults having their own kids, and so I receive emails and contact on the street. People coming up, smiling or whispering and pointing. It's constant now. I'm always a little surprised when that happens, because I've never done this work, this job, this life, for that level of recognition. But because I have been visible for so long, people, and I have a fairly recognizable face and beard, people smile right away. They're as you're saying with the staff at CBC now, there is a just that inner joy that comes out because I connected with them at a critical developmental time of life.
Yeah.
And that's such a blessing and an honor for me to have been part of so many lives.
Wow, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You come at a time when children are developing and you become a core memory, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen things change over those decades, or are children the same?
The core of kids are the same. That's the things that I have always tried to relate to have never altered. It's all about love and family and kindness and communication and treating each other with respect and love. Those values never change. But the things that have altered, obviously, is the technology and where kids are now receiving their messages from. The kinds of shows that they get on television. There are fewer and fewer human connections. So much of it now is cartoon and animation and I know when I was beginning, it was Mr. Dress Up,
right.
and Sharon Wilson Bram had their show.
Yep.
And I was following on the heels of the Friendly Giant, and there were these bearded men, or these solo men trying to encourage the audience to be gentle, to be communicating at a positive level. So those things never really change, but the world has caused us to go into this tailspin that we're all really concerned about. I mean, hearing the guests that you were speaking to just prior to me coming on, I just feel so. My heart bleeds for where society is right now, because there is so much. There are so many resources. There is so much food. There is so much truly money that is there that could be directed to people who are in need, but it's flipped upside down, and I'm in a big quandary as to what I can do, individually. So I'll keep babbling here until you stop me.
I'm really struck by that reflection that you have around the world that we do live in now, and how things have changed because of technology, for one. And I want to hear from our audience as well. What do you do to prioritize kindness amid all the different priorities that we have in this world now as parents? We're thinking about things like our kids' future and the role of AI and all of that. But what about kindness? What do you do to instill kindness in your children? And what can we do as a society to keep prioritizing kindness? Love to hear from you. 604-669-3733. 1-800-825-5950. I do have a caller here, Wayne, Fred, who has would like to thank you, Fred. So Wayne is on the line in Vernon. Hi, Wayne, welcome.
Thanks for taking my call. Fred, it's Wayne Clausen, and you probably know me best from my daughter Julia Clausen in Lethbridge. And
He does.
I do, absolutely. Oh, Wayne, it's good to hear your voice again, and please send my love to Julia. She's one of the real lifetime sparks in my life. Whenever I'm, within a province or two, you folks have been so supportive and brought Julia to my performances, and she just bubbles over every time. It's a treat.
Wow. And Wayne, tell us about your family. Go ahead.
Well, Julia is a special needs individual, and I know that Fred has a special part of his heart for special needs people. And but we see when we go to his concerts, we just see an amazing example of giving. And we need more examples of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's them. And it's within all of our beings to be able to do that. And it does. The thing that frustrates me is that it really takes nothing to offer kindness. We're not talking about digging in your pocket and trying to give people money if you can't afford it, but it's one of the things when I thought about this interview today is my wife and I, when we go shopping, whatever store it happens to be, it's if they're wearing a name tag, I use the name tag. If they're not wearing a name tag, I say, what's your name? Oh, okay, great. So you develop a relationship with these people in your community who are really keeping things flowing, certainly in the grocery stores and all. And if you take a moment and just give them a support for thank you for what you are doing, and people are, they're surprised to be given any kind of accolade for a day-to-day job that they're into. Just thank people for anything they do in your life, and it makes you feel better about yourself, or that's the way I look at it at any rate.
I think, Wayne, I'm so glad that you have called to thank Fred for the difference he's made in your life.
Absolutely. And I know that he'll continue to do that forever because, his shows that are still on YouTube and can be seen on the internet, they're precious, and they're something that we need to archive and keep for generations.
Wayne, thank you so much. All the best to your family and to Julia. Thank you for your call. Okay, you take care. All the best.
Thank you, Wayne. Love to the whole family.
That's Wayne in Vernon. I'd love to hear from more of our audience too. If you want to thank Fred, do call us and let us know too how we can instill kindness, that sense of giving that we heard Wayne talk about, right? That sense of giving. How can we instill that in our kids? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or you can just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca, and we're watching your comments on TikTok. Chantal writes, Fred was my first concert, and shaking hands, raising hands emoji on the TikTok there. Chantal, thank you very much. It's funny, I was talking to Chris Hadfield about kindness and what are some ways that we can express kindness, and that what you just said, thanking people for what they do. He talked about thanking veterans for their service, why that means so much. And it's that acknowledgement that people may be missing, that sense of connection, the human connection, as you said, given that we are surrounded by so much technology. What are some ways parents can either sidestep technology or just amid all of that, make sure that kindness is a value that their kids grow up around?
Yeah, that's an important question. Something that my wife and I do on a daily basis. You families get into patterns, and someone takes out the garbage, or someone cleans the dog poop, or, I mean, there's jobs that are happening constantly in a functioning family.
Yeah.
And they become rote. You just do this, you do this because it has to be done. But within our little home here, anything we do, it's, oh, thanks for doing that. You did the vacuuming today. Thanks for vacuuming. Thanks for washing the dishes. Thanks for doing the clothes. Thanks for hanging that up. There's so many things that as I said, we do on a regular basis, but because it's part of our day to day, you don't think to thank somebody. So put that into the mix every day. Whatever your child does, thanks for putting your dishes in the sink. Thanks for anything that
I love it.
That I
love it.
It's on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Just say thank you.
Just say
thank you all the time, constantly.
Leah is up next now in North Vancouver about teaching kids kindness. Hi, Leah. Welcome. Hi, Leah. Are you there? Okay, I think we've lost our connection with Leah. Please do call us. I think we have quite a few callers on the line. 604-669-3733. Leah, are you there? Okay, still no connection with Leah. My apologies for that. We'll try to get to another caller as soon as we can. Oh, Pam is there from Nelson. Hi, Pam.
I am. Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Pam.
What do you want to say about kindness?
Thanks for taking my call. You want me to just get into what my point?
Go ahead. Let us know what you want to say about kindness.
I grew up in Creston, and my parents that's all one of the main things I remember about them is that they'd stop and help anybody. My dad was one of the most friendly people. He always said hello to everybody. And I think by osmosis, all the kids, mom and dad had 4 kids, and we're all the same that way. But I don't think it's a genetic thing. I think it's just being that way in front of your child. So I have one son, and he is not even biologically mine, but we adopted him when he was newborn, and that's what he saw. I'm not so sure about if he saw that all the time in his dad, but he sure saw it all the time in me, in so much that I'd stop. We'd be on the dead run on our way to a hockey practice or school or something, and if somebody was in trouble, I'd just stop and help them. And I remember Quinn saying, "Oh, Mom, please, we're late." And saying, "No, honey, this is a human being. We got to help." And, after 10 years, oh, I'm sure going on, aren't I? After 10 years, and now he's 26, and I still have teachers in his schools, parents from other children that he grew up with, tell me what a lovely, kind, generous person he is and was.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, if that's the only thing that he gets from me, my cup is full.
Oh, my goodness,
there is
Pam.
so much disconnect and so much sadness in this world. Sometimes all somebody needs is just a smile and hello, and that can just turn the day around.
That's just it, Pam. Thank you so much. And I love that. Just hearing that about your son fills your cup. We actually have an email from Joanne who writes about an author's message that stuck with her. One was that children hear 10% of what you do and 90% see 90% of what you do. So I made an effort to remember this while raising my child and worked hard to show her kindness through my interactions. So it's setting that example. I have a couple of minutes left with you, Fred. I just want to ask you if there's someone who stands out for you as an example of kindness.
Yes, there is. And before I say that, I wanted to put a challenge out to your listeners is about someone in your life who made a difference to you, that person who gave, whether a teacher or a relative or a friend, who gave you that virtual pat on the back, to say you're doing a great job. I love you. I care about you, because everybody has someone along the way who's done that. And often you forget about, as you go into life, you forget about that moment where someone did reach out and make a difference to you. I had a teacher in Winnipeg, at University of Winnipeg. His name was Dr. Swayze, and he it was an encouragement and the importance of literature in life. He wasn't a great teacher, but on the last class of my English class with him, he was reading Suzanne from Suzanne Takes You Down, Leonard Cohen.
The song, yeah.
And at the end, he got halfway through, and then he sort of broke into tears. It was so personal to him. He passed the story on to someone else to finish reading, and then he said, "Remember how the value of there is in literature." So it's not so much a kindness effort, but he didn't have to say that, but he took that moment to encourage class to realize his shortcomings as a teacher, but the importance and the value of literature in his life. And I have never forgotten that moment.
Wow.
And I've got dozens of those from people along the way who have reached out and said thank you for something that I may have done along the way. It's simple. It's so simple, truly.
I just want to, I know Gary was on the line. He worked as a stagehand, and just wanted to thank you, Fred. I'm not able to go to him, but he met you, and he took his son to meet you, and they were over the moon and in total awe. That's Gary in Prince George. Nancy writes, "Thank you, Fred Penner. I am grateful to see you today, especially on a day where another Canadian icon for kids, Franklin, has been misused. Love to see Fred at the Caslow Jazz Festival." Fred, all the best to you. Thank you.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. Thank you, everybody.